So Tenet, guys, a movie in which is probably at the very top of my list for 2020 movies that I'm the most anticipated for. This is a movie that, coming from Christopher Nolan, who I believe is one of the best visionaries in filmmaking right now. And this guy is starting to make a case for best director on the planet when it comes to filmmaking, which we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But right now, talking about Tenet, everything that we know so far about this movie, I want to kind of talk about it. We can break down some things. Of course, the new trailers did release, and we were able to see some, some footage. But a lot of it, of course, has to do with time, it seems, which is something that Christopher Nolan really likes to kind of deal with within his movies. But we still don't really know much at all. And that's why Christopher Nolan is so good at doing everything from his visuals to the trailers he puts out and releases to the public. And then the movies themselves are, generally speaking, very, very good and very psychological and very thrilling as well. So in this article, it was written a little while ago, about 5 months ago. But nonetheless, I thought that this was a really good article written. As it states, Christopher Nolan hasn't really done a sequel outside of the Batman trilogy that sought to reinvent The Dark Knight in some way. But some are starting up the theory that Tenet could be related in a big way to the movie Inception, though at this point it's more of a rumor and not much else. We know the lineup that's going to be used for the movie and a few basic ideas that have been teased, but other than this, there's not a lot that's been handed down that we can really use to extrapolate any further details. What does seem obvious, though, is that it's getting many people, including Ryan Scott from MovieWeb and several others, kind of excited to think of what might be on the way in 2020. So far, it looks as though the coming year will be a big one for the movie theaters and a great time for a lot of audience members since a great deal of material is coming out. And it's bound to herald another wave of change when it comes to the movies. It might not be such a big thing. It might not even be as big of a change as anyone is thinking. But one thing is clear, and that's the fact that there's a good deal to anticipate when 2020 arrives. So, Tenet, guys, obviously coming out this summer. Something, Christopher Nolan, it's interesting that he releases his movies in the summer. I know that he loves doing the big blockbusters that come out in the summer. But at the same time, I feel like all of his movies are so good that they should all be nominated, essentially. Like most of his movies that he's come out with should have been nominated. I feel like Dunkirk actually was one of the movies that was not that impressive to me. I don't know why. I think there was a number of reasons why I didn't think Dunkirk was that great. I thought that the visuals were great, but I just thought that they kind of held back because it was a PG-13 rating. Nonetheless, that got nominated, and I felt like some of his other movies that didn't get nominated should have been nominated without a doubt. And Tenet, I'm wondering if it's going to be kind of more of the same, because even though it might be an absolutely mind-blowing type of movie, it seems like the movies that come out in the summer a lot of times aren't nominated, because usually you got the Oscar season, which is later on in the year. But nonetheless, Christopher Nolan, maybe he just doesn't care about that. He just wants to make really great movies that are, big and grand. And so, I mean, it's hard to tell. But that being said, I think Tenet definitely, people are comparing this movie to Inception, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Another little factoid, courtesy of Ali Gemel from Collider, is that this movie is going to focus in international espionage, so likening it to Inception might be even easier, since the whole point of Inception was that Hobbs and his team were adept at finding their way into a person's mind to obtain secrets and would then use whatever they found to complete the heist. If this is the same, which it might be according to many that have seen the trailer, we could be in for another thrill ride thanks to Nolan and his genius. To be honest, it would be nice to see this kind of movie again, since it did so well the first time, but with the new crew, it's bound to be quite different, since whether or not it's like Inception, it will still have a different storyline to follow and something that will keep people in their seat and watching until the credits start to roll. One thing that's obvious is that Christopher Nolan has never really let us down when it comes to entertainment, but he does like to keep things close to the vest at times. And that is an understatement. He keeps things very close to the vest. He doesn't even really, allow pictures getting out from his sets and such. So without a doubt, this is going to be something that another one of those movies that I feel is going to be absolutely mind-bending and very exciting. Because my question is that sure, Inception, it seems like, it'd be the easiest way to like compare this to Inception, but I'm also going to throw out Interstellar, because Interstellar ended on a cliffhanger. If you don't remember, it ended on a cliffhanger, and when we're talking about different dimensions and things of that nature, this is something that could definitely be in that kind of like in that universe as well, which of course we'll have to kind of wait and see. But Inception is definitely, I know a lot of people would love it to be, a sequel to Inception. I would like it to be a sequel. I mean, or I'd like it to just to be its own thing. That's the other thing that I would, I'd be happy with that as well. It would appear that Michael Caine will be making his way back into Nolan's circle, as he's been there with Nolan for several movies and seems to be one of the director's favorite actors. Many directors tend to have a running stable of talent that they like to work with from time to time, and some that they simply have to have in their movies more often than not. This is easy to notice when you start to watch more and more of their movies, since the rapport that is developed between actors and the director tends to show in the manner of how many movies they work on together, and sometimes in how effective the actors are at taking direction from the same person over and over again. While it's not really certain what Caine's role will be in the movie as of yet, it's usually a good sign to see him around, since there's going to be a good part of entertainment that is attributable solely to his acting. Thankfully, there are other noted actors that will be showing up, such as John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki, Kenneth Branagh, and a few others that will give the story a bit of pep, since they've been noted as being able to perform well in previous projects. So far, the movie seems like it might be one of the more stipulating going into 2020. And while there are many movies coming out that could make such a bold claim, they don't have Nolan at the helm, which is a big up for Tenet to begin with. So I think that that's true. I think that certainly the noted actors, John David Washington and Robert Pattinson, even though I'm not a huge Robert Pattinson fan, but definitely John David Washington, I'm very intrigued to see him as the star in this film. And as far as other 2020 movies that are coming out, I think there's gonna be some stiff competition though. I mean, Dune is a movie that's gonna be coming out, of course, with Denis Villeneuve, or I'm not even sure exactly how to say his name, but he is a great director as well. And Dune is a movie I think that's going to do well as well. And that's a movie that's going to be slated, I believe, in December. So it's going to be more around the Oscar season. So I think that Tenet is going to have some stiff competition, but I still think that Christopher Nolan is, without a doubt, the one of the strongest directors in the entire world at this point. He's made a case that he is the best director on the planet. And that's saying something for, of course, his age, how many movies he's made, and things of that nature. But that being said, I think we're all pretty excited about this movie. But the idea that it has anything to do with Inception or could be like it in any way is going to be the reason why some people give it any attention, since Inception was such a mind-bending movie unto itself that people are still debating to this day whether or not the ending was fashioned in the way that they think it was. If Tenet is even half as good as Inception was, then there's a great chance that it could pull down roughly the same numbers, if not better, depending on how the story is fashioned and whether or not it gets people thinking in several different directions at once. In any case, it will be fun to find out. So there's something about Christopher Nolan. Having his name attached to a project is similar, to me at least, like having Leonardo DiCaprio, tied to a project. Anytime that you put on the screen a film by Christopher Nolan, or you see Leonardo DiCaprio's name up there, those are big names that are going to draw a crowd, regardless of how good the movie is. They have such a strong following of people, like a cult following of people that want to go watch their movie, regardless of really what it is, just because they're intrigued. I think Christopher Nolan has earned that without a doubt. And so I do think that Tenet could certainly do, as you know, it could do very well. Do kind of the numbers of maybe Interstellar, possibly Inception. But I think Inception had so many strong names in that movie, and DiCaprio was there, of course, at the helm of that movie. I have a hard time believing that Tenet will be even bigger than that, but maybe the following is just grown and grown even more for Christopher Nolan. And so now maybe it's just that maybe this movie is going to be absolutely huge, because apparently the production budget for this movie is very, very big. So that's going to be something that's going to be interesting, to say the least. But that's everything that we know so far, guys, about this movie, Tenet. I mean, it's, from the trailers and such, very mind-bendy. Everything has to deal with time. So that's why I'm wondering, is this part of Interstellar? Is this a part of, Inception? Or is it something completely on its own? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you guys think about the trailers that have been released so far? What's your favorite Christopher Nolan movie? Let me know what you guys think.